Flight or Fright by Janine Scott. Fly like birds. Long ago, people wanted to fly. They climbed up high, put on wings and flapped. And then they jumped. They usually landed in a heap. Since then, people have made many different flying machines. It took lots of trial and error before humans built a machine that could fly. Testing the machines was often trial and terror. The Birdman flying machine was one of the earliest flying machines. Fear in the air. In 1783, French brothers Joseph and Jacques Montgolfier designed a large hot air balloon. They built a fire on the ground and held the opening of the balloon over the fire. The balloon went up, but the smell was terrible. They had put old shoes and rotten meat on the fire. Trial and error. The Montgolfier brothers got their balloon idea when they saw paper scraps floating near a fire. To test their idea, they filled paper bags with smoke. Trial and terror! The brothers were afraid to test the balloon themselves, so they sent a sheep, a duck, and a rooster up instead. Luckily, the animals landed safely. Glider rider. A glider is a flying machine that has no engine. Its specially shaped wings help it glide through the air. Otto Lilienthal was a German glider inventor known as the Glider King. In 1894, Otto built a big hill, which he used to launch his gliders. Otto Lilienthal flew his first glider in 1891. Trial and error. Otto made at least 9 different gliders. Over 5 years, he went for more than 2,000 glider flights. Trial and terror. On the 9th of August, 1896, Otto crashed his glider. Sadly, he died from his injuries the next day. Otto Lilienthal. Fiery flight. Airships are big balloons with bags of gas inside them. This gas is lighter than air, so it helps the airship rise. The first airships were filled with flammable gas. Trial and error. In early airships that were trialled, the bags that held the gas were made from cows' intestines. The intestines of 250,000 cows were needed for one airship. The Hindenburg was a huge airship. It had a dining room and a lounge. Trial and terror! The Hindenburg exploded in 1937. Sadly, many people on board died. The Hindenburg's first flight was in 1936.
Question. There were 2 types of flying before powered airplanes, gliders and balloons. Please explain them. Example answer. A glider is jumping from a high place and flying through the air. A hot air balloon is when people build a fire on the ground and hold the opening of the balloon over the fire to make the balloon go up. Later, they put a gas that is lighter than air in the balloon. These 2 types of flying were difficult to control, especially when landing.
Sky flyer. On the 14th of December 1903, the first powered aeroplane took flight and then crashed. The flyer, which was built by the Wright brothers, flew for just 3.5 seconds. 3 days later, the flyer flew again, this time for 12 seconds, at Kitty Hawk in the United States of America, USA. Kitty Hawk was a good place for flying. It had strong winds, which helped the flyer take off, and soft sand for crash landings. Trial and error. The Wright brothers built a wind tunnel. They used it to test about 200 different wing shapes. Trial and terror. The Wright brothers flew the flyer 3 more times after the first flight. After its 4th flight, a big wind flipped the flyer, damaging it. It never flew again. The flyer took its first proper flight on the 17th of December, 1903.
Question. On December 14th, 1903, a powered airplane flew for 3.5 seconds. Please explain this historical event in detail. Example answer. The airplane was made by the Wright brothers. It flew just for 3.5 seconds at Kitty Hawk in the United States and crashed. Its name was the Flyer. It was the first powered flight in history. 3 days later, the Flyer flew for 12 seconds. The Wright brothers' Flyer was flown 4 times.
Wooden wonder. Most aeroplanes today are made of metal. However, the Mosquito was made of wood. It was designed in England and flown during the Second World War. It was one of the fastest aeroplanes flown in the war. The plane was held together with screws and glue. When the Mosquito flew in hot places, the glue sometimes came unstuck. Flying fact. In England during the Second World War, furniture makers and piano makers helped make the planes. Trial and terror. One of the Mosquito's nicknames was the Timber Terror. The Mosquito was first flown in 1940. Floating flyer. A flying boat is a plane that can land on water. The biggest flying boat ever built was the Spruce Goose. It was made out of wood. Most people thought it was too big to fly. Trial and terror. The Spruce Goose was designed to carry 750 soldiers during the Second World War. Unfortunately, it wasn't ready in time. Trial and error. The Spruce Goose was tested only once. It flew for less than 1 minute. It was never used again. The Spruce Goose took its first and only flight on the 2nd of November, 1947. In a spin. Helicopters fly up, down, backwards, forwards, and sideways. They can even hover in one place. Helicopters have 2 rotors that spin around, a main rotor and a tail rotor. Without a tail rotor, a helicopter would turn in circles. Igor Sikorsky made the first successful American helicopter in 1939. Trial and terror. Igor's first helicopter went backwards and sideways. However, it had trouble going forwards. Trial and error. Igor made so many changes to his helicopter design, it was nicknamed Igor's Nightmare. Tail rotor. Main rotor. Igor Sikorsky first flew his helicopter on the 14th of September, 1939.
Please explain this picture. Example answer. This is the first American helicopter, which was made by Igor Sikorsky in 1939. It flew backwards and sideways, but it had trouble going forwards. It had the nickname Igor's Nightmare.
Invisible. The B-2 stealth bomber is a warplane. It was designed in secret and first flown in 1989. It has a smooth shape and special paint that make it almost impossible for radars to find. Flying fact. Sometimes B-2s drop dummy bombs. These look like bombs, but they do not explode. They are used during training exercises. Trial and terror. Some B-2 flights are 40 hours long. There is a toilet in the plane, but there are no walls around it. The B-2 stealth bomber is painted grey, which makes it hard to see in the sky.
Space plane. Spaceship Two is a plane designed to take tourists into space. It went on its first powered test flight in April 2013. A plane called White Knight 2 carries Spaceship Two into the sky and lets it go in mid-air. Spaceship Two then flies into space. A flight will last about 2.5 hours, but the tourists will be in space for only a few minutes. In space, there is no gravity to pull things towards the ground, so the people can float around inside the plane. Trial and error. Spaceship Two's first test flight was not in space. It was over a desert. Trial and terror. Spaceship Two can re-enter Earth's atmosphere at any angle, even upside down.
Glossary. Atmosphere. The layer of gas and cloud around Earth. Flammable. Likely to catch fire easily and burn quickly. Gravity. It pulls us down towards the ground so we stay on it. Hover. To stay in one place in the air. Intestines. Long tubes under the stomach that food passes through. Launch. To start something moving. Powered. Moved with the help of an engine. Radars. Machines that use radio waves to find objects. Rotors. The spinning parts of a helicopter. The main rotor helps the helicopter to lift off the ground. Timber. Wood. Trial and error. To keep trying and learning from your mistakes until you are successful. Wind tunnel. A huge tube with air moving inside it.
Well done.